everybody here who worked on this. We have so many people here who worked on this. Thank you all so much for putting your souls into this.
Well, I hope everybody enjoyed that. A snapshot of 50 years, 51 years actually. And it's a story I wanted to tell for a long time. A lot of those people aren't here with us anymore. And those people never got credit before. So that's the reason I wanted to tell it. And you got to see it.
And one other thing that I don't think many people in this audience know, I don't know if I got a chance to tell you, Tom, but a fan of Planet of the Apes contacted us this morning, all the way from Brazil, and gave us a piece of information that we did not know. We talk about the premiere of Planet of the Apes being in March of 1968, but Tom mentions that he went to that Westwood screening to see it. It was the first time he saw it completed. That was 51 years ago today, February 8th, 1968.
Oh, wow.
Just found that out today. So thank you, Mickey, for timing this perfectly.
I do what I can. So, Will, can you tell us how you got involved? I know this has been a passion project for you for a good 4 years. So, can you tell us a little bit how you got involved?
Absolutely. It is truly a product of this film festival. We owe SBIFF a lot. SBIFF has an amazing year-round program called Cinema Society, and through that I met Tom and Barry, and we became good friends. We love film. We talk about the films they worked on, appreciation of other films. And about 4 years ago now, Tom came to me and he said that he wanted to tell this story and he felt I was the right person for it. And I was deeply, deeply honored by that, and we jumped right into it, seeing if this was, where the story was. We shot 100 hours of interviews for this, so we had to really figure out how to tell this story in a concise amount of time, and the journey with him has just been fantastic. And Barry, please stand up. Barry and Harleen, please stand up. The five of us have been on this for 4 years now.
Yeah. I was taking writing a memoir class here in City College, and I was thinking about when I first started makeup in 1966. I knew the makeup artists that did like Marilyn Monroe or Clark Gable, Elvis Presley, Frank Sinatra, and they would tell me these great stories of the golden age, and I would think, geez, those are wonderful stories. And then I realized, as I was thinking about it, they're all dead, and those stories went with them. And then I realized I'm one of those alta-cockers now. And so that's when I saw Will's, who photographs all the events here. And I saw him up front, and I tapped him on the shoulder, and I said, "You want to do a documentary?"
Yes, yeah, I think so. Sounds good.
Now, Tom, what's it like having now your story finally told, and in a way that it's in a way that you don't have to answer to anybody. It was told the way you wanted it to be told. Can you talk a little bit about having this told?
Well, it's strange because, as he said, we had 104 hours there's a lot to say. And so we had to pick out what we wanted to say. And so the story this was the story, and it's very moving for me because this is a turning point in my life. This is from when I said I didn't have $100 to my name back then, it was true. And I've been very, very successful through the years, and it changed my whole life. And what was so interesting is it changed so many other people's lives.
Now, Will, you choose to use reenactments throughout the film. Can you talk a little bit about that artistic choice?
Yeah, there are a lot of elements to this film, and there's a lot that we have great documentation for, but of course, being 51 years ago, there were just certain things that there was no real source material for, and I thought it lent just a nice ethereal beat to it at certain points, to have that extra bit in there. And, some things just with whimsy, like, the golf cup with Franklin Schaffner. There was no photos of the ADR lab out there. And, we felt that it just added an extra little feel. And in one of the early planning meetings to try and figure out the story for this, I was at Tom and Barry's home, and we're jotting down ideas, and we're talking about this and that, and Tom just disappears for a minute, and he comes back, and on their dining room table, he just sets down the gorilla head that you see in the last shot. That is the screen-used gorilla head from Argo, taken from the original mold from Planet of the Apes. And I'm just looking at this thing going, that's our last shot. That's the end of the film right there. This is Making Apes. This is it. So kind of from there, it felt easy to figure out that reenactments would add an extra element to the piece.
Now, the music, the score, I know it only took, it took about 9 days that you had. Can you talk a little bit about the difficulty of getting that done?
I told my kids and my girlfriend, I'm going to go into this cave and I will not reemerge. And I came out and I had a beard that was down to here. It was just, it was something that meant a lot to me, and the project meant a lot to me because I was a lifelong fan of the original franchise. It transformed what my perception of music to a narrative was. So, it just basically was 18 to 20 hours a day. I would sleep for like 20 minutes, and I'd get up and I'd work. And I remember what Tom was saying in the film, how tired they were, how the entire crew worked around the clock. And, everybody in our line of work always has, the grueling job, which will take some years off the back end. You're sure of it, but you say, if they can do it, I can do it. So I just put my nose to the grindstone and dug in. It wasn't easy, but career high.
And there's a magical moment in the film, right off the bat, that Lou gets to put on the makeup after all these years again. Can you come over and talk to us a little bit about what it was like to have that makeup put back on?
Yeah, is Vincent Van Dyke here? It was fabulous. And I didn't realize until the mold was done and they were putting the appliances on weeks later, maybe months later, I realized they were doing Lucius 50 years later. And it was a brilliant idea, and Vincent, you did a brilliant job.
Now, Robbie, what was it like for you to be a part of this, being one of the originals and being able to be a part of this magical documentary?
Before I get to me, all of you who are still sitting here tonight, can you please give these two gentlemen a huge round of applause? Thank you for being here. I've spoken this a few times. Without an audience, the best performances in the world don't matter. It's you who make us relevant, and my participation in this is one of the highlights of my career.
At this time, we would love to open it up for these gentlemen to the audience, so if you have any questions, please raise your hand and we will... Yes, in the far back.
So, Tom, so many hours in the chair, so much material, so much patience from all your actors. Of all the original 4 actors you worked with, who had the most patience, and did any of them wear their makeup to sleep to come in the next day?
They don't sleep in their makeup. I think the most interesting was Christopher Lloyd, because I worked with him a few times. And Christopher Lloyd, as soon as we started to put the impression material on his head, he just And I would have to hold his head up like this and we did it. And when we did the makeup, he'd sleep through the whole thing. He just would go off and go to sleep, and we'd have to move his head around. When he was finished, he got up, walked out of the chair. But some people are a little claustrophobic, so I'm sure some of you watched this and thought, geez, I could never do that. But with the new techniques like Vincent's using, it goes very quickly, and I think it's 15 minutes? 15 minutes? Yeah. And
3 hours.
Where it used to be a lot longer. And often you'll hear actors, I know my wife and I, Barry, have heard people on different talk shows talking about being in this makeup, in this impression material, buried for an hour and a half with straws up their nose. Well, it never happens. I saw it happen one time, but never with anybody who does this kind of work today. So it's we're very careful with people.
Yes, in the back. Yes, you, sir.
What prompted you to take the class at City College rather than sit on laurels?
Sitting on my laurels. I never thought about it that way, but I thought about writing a book, and I thought I wanted to write a book. We have Steve Johnson here, who wrote a book called Rubberhead. It just put me away. And, I was writing a book at the same time, and I realized that writing a book was too daunting. That if I could write it in short stories, I could do that. I'm still doing that. And that just led up to one thing after another, and that's when I tapped Will on the shoulder.
Thank you.
Yes. That's what I was going to jump over to. I was actually going to ask you about how you got involved with the narration and what the process was for you.
James Earl Jones passed. And then I said, okay, I'll do it. No, the Winstons and the Burmans go way back. One of my father's favorite human beings on the planet is that dude, Tom Burman. And when they called Barry and Tom and said, be a part of this, my heart skipped a beat, and I said, of course, so honored. And truly, this is a story that needed to be told, and I only wish Dad was here in the audience tonight to celebrate this with you guys. And I love you.
Matt used to do magic shows for Stan and his mom, and we would watch him come out with his little magic shows, and he would do all these things.
And it was the 70s, so I think you were stoned out of your mind. And I think I looked pretty magical through that lens.
Maybe that's why it was magic.
And for me, it was a great thing to have Matt come on, because we did our interview with Matt relatively early on, and sitting there interviewing him and hearing him talk about this and hearing his voice and knowing how great he was, I think just like maybe days later, we started talking about, hey, should we call Matt and ask him if he wants to do the narration? And he jumped on right away. But an important part of this for me was, in the film we talk about influences, films that influence other filmmakers. And for me, the film that inspired me to be a filmmaker is Jurassic Park. Special effects by Stan Winston Studio. Matt worked on Jurassic Park. So to have that come full circle for me was truly amazing as well.
That's right, and I'm here to announce that Will is directing Making Dinosaurs next. So look out for that. It'll be about 6 years. Be patient.
50 years.
Are there any other questions in the audience? Yes.
Well, did you have a hard time getting permission for that footage, and was there some footage you wanted that you did not get permission?
That's a great question. Yeah, there's a lot of elements. There's certain things that we immediately understood we weren't going to put on there. We didn't want to even open up that can of worms. fair use is a very important part of documentary filmmaking. We had a great team with us that could advise us on elements, what to include, what not to include. What was really fantastic is the incredible archives of all the people involved in it, the photos from behind the scenes. People from all over the world contributed their elements. There's a gentleman in England who purchased a large collection of John Chambers' original photographic slides, and he provided them to us. Dean Preston, who's here from New Zealand, he came all the way from New Zealand for the premiere. He provided elements to us. We had people all over the world who supported us in putting this project together.
Any other questions out there? Yes.
I am really amazed how you covered such a long period of time. As a filmmaker, was that a real challenge for you to figure out what to include and what not to include? I would love to hear a little bit about your process as a filmmaker.
Well, again, it's a great opportunity to have somebody else stand up. Our editor, Micah Stewart. Micah? When we handed our kind of edit notes script, if you will, to Micah, I think the first cut he sent back to us was 4 hours long. And kind of just had to start figuring it out from there. Like we said, 100 plus hours of interviews. We're going to have a hell of a YouTube channel at the end of this. Just as a film lover myself, we did this interview with Guillermo del Toro. That was like a week after he won the Oscar for Shape of Water. And when we finished doing that interview with him, he said, "Can Tom and I sit down and talk now?" I said, "As long as we can roll camera on it." And that's actually where the whole story, Tom telling that great story about breaking the test mold, that came out of just them chatting. And I think he talked with them for about 40 minutes, and I'm looking at that going, well, there's a complete special feature on the Blu-ray right there. They just talked about their love of film for a few minutes. And it's like you're sitting at a table having lunch with two people, hearing what they have to say. It's a great insight for people who love film.
Any final question? Yes, right there in the middle. Yeah.
Watching the final credits roll, it was really cool to see how many people in this production share your last names, Burman and Conlin.
No nepotism whatsoever.
Oh, my son, Max Burman, stand up, Max. Max Burman is a matte painter, and he owns he has a partner, Banks, has a company called Kit Bash. You can find it on the internet, and also they created a game called Sleep Time, and he really gave us a lot of the post-production stuff. And Charles, where are you, Charles, back there? Charles is the colorist, one of the top colorists in the world with this work. And with those two, they really added a lot of production value.
We have time for one more. One more question?
I just have a comment.
Yeah, comment. I'll take comments.
My son, Rob Burman, has a company called Rubberware, and he helped do all the, you'll see that on the YouTube. You'll see that as well as some of the extra stuff, how all the process of doing the old school technique is, because he remembers that, and he did it very well. Yeah. And Skip. Oh, I forgot Skip. Skip Burman, my brother's son. Skip did the sound, did all the recording and all the mixing and all that.
My comment is only that we have within our midst some amazing creators and people that have come all this way to celebrate the love of what they did, which inspires us to do what we can do. And you guys set the precedent. And I just want to thank you so much for coming to our small town and gracing us with your gift, and to Will and his family, and to everybody that worked on this project. That was in a time of the internet where we get lost in other things, to go back to what was really where we came from. You guys are our history, and I thank you so much for it.
So if you would like to follow us on Facebook at Making Apes Documentary, we've got a great community, over 2,000 fans from around the world on there already. We'll have updates on that. We pushed as hard as they did on Planet of the Apes to get this film done for SBIFF. So our journey from here is a little open-ended. We've submitted to other film festivals. We hope to take it around. But it was really our top goal to have it here, and thank you all for being here for it.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for coming out. Tell your friends about it. It plays again tomorrow morning.